back to the Sad Dad Games podcast. I'm Shan.
I'm Eric.
I'm Tucker.
And I am Lundy.
We're going to be doing Spider-Man today, but before we get into that, I would like to remind you to please like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and listen to Eric's Indie Corners on Thursdays. All right, so today we're going to be picking... Just do it.
You have to. If you don't, we'll scream and cry. We'll all be very upset.
Do it.
That's what I was going to do, yeah.
Just grab your dreams.
Do it.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Just do it. All right. So now that we LaBuffed the heck out of this intro,
can we make that a verb, please? To LaBuff things.
Yes, he's an inspiration to all millennials, right? Because he really made something out of himself.
He's
sometimes.
Even Stevens.
Yeah, even
you know
Stevens
what?
to
Shia
Holes
LaBeouf,
to being
he's
Shia
even
LaBeouf.
Stevens. Yeah, even Stevens to Holes to Transformers, which were terrible movies except for the first one, and then he found Jesus, and you know what? Good for that guy. He's just doing well. Like,
oh, he did a
also,
Jesus stint.
yeah, well, he's on a thing right now where he's a spiritual guy. I don't know. My wife showed me an Instagram thing, and I made a guess. Like,
So shout out to his mom and stepdad. They are wonderful people. I have met them when I was working at the airport. I was working for
brag
limo service, like the people that hold the signs. And they came through, and they were some of the nicest people I have ever met. And
that was the most shoehorned
chaser
name drop I've ever heard for not even famous people.
Reaching.
No, but shout out to them. I know they're probably one of our 56 listeners. And,
yeah, probably.
They're going to hear this.
No. I think we hit 57 today just randomly with the new Zelda episode that dropped.
I would love if secretly Shia LaBeouf's parents were like, did you guys catch the new Sad Dad Games episode? Oh, I love these guys. They're just like devout listeners every week. It's them and Lundy. They're giving us all our listens.
Thank you, listeners 56 and 57. Won't you join us to be numbers 58 and 59?
Yay.
That was a loose reference to Heavyweights. Only maybe Tucker got it. Oh, you know Heavyweights?
There we go.
Yeah, Heavyweights is one of the greatest movies of all time. Ben Stiller.
You just became Shan's favorite person.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Please elaborate.
I can't tell you how regularly I use the phrase "this pleases me." Like,
yes,
all the time.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
get off the scale. I say myself every morning.
you heading to fat camp?
Due to lack of hustle.
Are you heading to fat camp? No. Why do you say that?
Yeah.
Because you're fat.
Because you're fat.
Is that your dad?
Is that your fat?
No.
No.
Why do you say that?
Yeah.
Because he's fat too. Well, so are you. I know. Yeah. That's why I'm heading to fat camp.
One of cinema's great movies. Yeah.
So good.
I know, and that's your dad too. Hell no.
Yeah. I had plans this summer. I was gonna hang out. That's like one of my favorite lines.
Kids, at age 12, I weighed 319 pounds. I had bad skin, low self-esteem, and no self-respect. And now I eat respect for breakfast with skim milk. Ew! Pounds are gonna fly and fat is out of here, mister, and we are gonna do it together!
We made a mistake. Shan's just gonna, this whole episode is just gonna be Shan quoting Heavyweights from start to finish. Yeah.
Oh man, that is the movie I've watched the most in my entire life. That was my 90s movie, along with like Monty Python, The Holy Grail. Like I watched it in the 90s. It's clearly not from the 90s. Oh my gosh. It took forever to rewind movies, right? But it's just like rewind, watch it again. I would watch it 3 times in a day. Oh gosh, ad nauseum.
Everyone knows that the best way to make things funnier is repetition. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to memorize the movie.
Obviously, yeah.
That's why
we got that, Shan. We
clearly
that
quoting
part
it
out.
verbatim. Yeah. I can even get these like little like background noises. Pounds are gonna fly and fat is out of here, miss. Yeah, just like these little ews in the background.
Like,
I want to go home.
Yeah, I want to go home.
I think that
and
the
he's
next
like
video...
doing the run down the aisle.
Yeah. And the one kid.
The next video we'll release on this channel is just going to be a dub of the entire movie with Shan doing every single character's lines.
Oh gosh. Oh,
Anyways, back to Spider-Man. We let's circle it back.
I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
This can be
Shan's
the whole episode.
He's in heavyweights mode now.
Because I made a really bad reference to heavyweights and it just triggered me. Also because like I'm watching Severance and I'm in Ben Stiller mode and I really appreciate him as a human being. And that's where I started to love him, was heavyweights. And I didn't know that like he was in the movie twice. I didn't know he played his own dad. That was like a revelation after like watch 30.
Call that pulling an Eddie Murphy.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
And then like that's where I didn't know that, like Paul Feig was in it, and then he went on to like be in The Office and to help create, write and direct some episodes and stuff.
Yeah,
he's
it's
the
a
guy
Judd
like
Apatow
in
film.
Yeah, Judd Apatow, and he does
everything you love.
Yep.
Yeah.
Paul Feig, he also was like in season 9 of The Office as like the guy who accidentally put the cat on the dog, and he was like so mad at himself. And then he put the mouse on the cat, and then he put a hat on the mouse. But it doesn't make sense to name the mice because they're kind of like cannon fodder. Anyway, funny human being, really love him. But yeah, he's in heavyweights, and it's just fantastic stuff. All right, so Spider-Man, right? I think we're gonna do it.
I mean, it's kind of on you. Are we doing Spider-Man now? Are you done, Shan? We're good?
I think we're doing it. I'm hyped. Okay. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
All right. So we're kicking off. We're at the Fisk building, and demons are swarming the place like flies to Scheisse, as they would say in that Key and Peele skit.
Drawn like flies to Scheisse.
I love that, right? They are there probably trying to steal more stuff. Are they still looking for weapons? Is that what this is about?
I think that they're moving in on like Fisk territory, and so like Fisk had a bunch of his illicit activities tied up in these construction sites. So I don't remember exactly why they're there. I think that they're trying to. Let me look at my notes really quick. They are at the construction sites, and they're trying to take out Fisk's forces. So they're going there and they're killing his workers that still work there. I think that's what's going on. So.
Yeah,
because they go there and you see them like gunning down some of the workers, and they're like, leave no survivors and stuff. So correct me if I'm grab. Leave me in the if I'm wrong in the comments, let me know. But I think that's what's going on.
That sounds right, because it's a direct tete-a-tete, and you're going in directly in tit for tit. Yeah, that is not the expression. Well, it should be. So you get a call from Fisk from prison, and he decides to form an alliance with you to protect his people, and then he'll help you figure out who is the head of the demons, right? Is that the quid pro quo?
Well, he says I love this little interaction that Spider-Man has, by the way, because Fisk calls one of his construction workers that Spidey has just saved and then also webbed up because he's a bad guy. And he like picks up his phone, and Spider-Man's hanging upside down. And so he's holding the phone upside down so that he'll appear upside down on the screen as he answers it, which I think is adorable. And then he answers the phone and goes, "Hey, Willie." And I just love so Spider-Man casual. Calling. Yeah, I just love how Spider-Man talks to his villains, just like when he's goofing around, just refuses to take him seriously. It's the same thing as when he calls Shocker Herman. It's just like ultimate casual disrespect, where he's just like, "What's up, nerd?" Like, I just love it.
I grew to really love the dynamic of Fisk from prison ever since the Daredevil TV show, because it shows his creativity and his power at its maximum ability when he's confined physically. And this isn't showing it to its greatest ability because it's just him forming an alliance. But like, I wish they would be able to tug at that thread a little bit more.
I mean, he's still like making phone calls from like FaceTime calls from prison, and like, but yeah, I agree. I love, especially in the Daredevil show, he's like having steak dinners, like, and like the guards are like standing watch for him. It's like he runs that place.
It's like
as soon
it's
as
Hannibal
he gets in there.
Lecter-esque when he's like in Silence of the Lambs, where he's in that room, like big art gallery, and before he cuts the face off the one guy. Also, is he using a butt phone? Like, did he just sneak that thing in there?
He doesn't have to. He's Fisk.
I was going to say, he probably got a guard to
I guess he probably has the guards paid off that.
He's like, "Hey guard, I'll give you $10,000 to bring me a phone."
No, he just said, "Security guard, give me your personal telephone. It is now mine."
Yeah. or I'll
and
kill
your
your family.
and your
Like-
wife. I'm going to F her. She's my conjugal this week. That's what happened.
Power move.
Yeah, that's a Wilson Fisk, classic Wilson Fisk power move.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love him like controlling things from jail. I think it's such a cool part about Fisk's character that it's just like you can physically confine him, but you can't like completely lock up his influence on the crime scene in New York. It's just, you just can't do it. He's too plugged in. He's too, influential in that sphere. And so very cool. So, and then he says, yeah, Spider's like, who are these guys working for? And he says, well, save my men and maybe I'll tell you. And so then you have to go swinging around, beating up demons and saving Fisk's construction workers. Yeah.
I always love the concept of Fisk having his finger in every pie in the city, and he knows like the threads of like who is running every power dynamic and who is running every crime syndicate, and he's just concealing that information so that he can be at the top of it, right? It feels like, you know what it is? It's like Blacklist with James Spader, where he is running the blacklist, or like he just like knows everything so that he can be involved and he can pull at it when he needs it.
Yeah, Fisk is always, like, I think that's partially why he's designed the way that he is. He's larger than life, where, like, he's this big guy that gives you that, like, you see him on the screen or in a comic book panel or something like that, and he's just a big guy where it's like, that's almost too big. But it's because his influence is so much larger than life. You can't contain it. You can put him in prison, like we've said on here, but no matter what you do, he is bigger than anything else, and he's always involved and just able to maintain that position no matter what.
And I was curious, like when he said when he was being hauled off to prison, I think something to the degree that Spider-Man would end up regretting his decision to have him hauled off, because even though he was like unlawful, that he was alluding to being like an unlawful necessary good for the ultimate utilitarian good for the city. Yeah, so I was wondering, like, what are people's thoughts? Because I actually kind of like buy this. I don't know if I buy this for like real life application, but clearly this is like something that is having purchase in our real world right now, where some people are okay with bending the ultimate constraints of law to get what they need, because they just like they hate being confined by law and they just need things done.
Well, I kind of lost the point of what you were talking about, the question you asked, but I like the Fisk says 1 month and you'll want me back. And I just like the idea, or you'll wish that you had me back or something like that. And I just love that idea that's like, you don't know what I'm holding together. And Fisk is so convinced that he's a necessary evil for the city. Like the best villains are the ones that think they're heroes. And Fisk thinks he's the hero of New York. He's like, New York needs me. It can't run without me. I'm the oil that greases all the wheels. You lock me up and things are going to fall apart. And they do a little bit. Like the demons kind of move into that power vacuum and they mess things up hard.
Yeah, the power void is more dangerous and worse than Fisk. And I love that dynamic because, I don't know, it feels very Spider-Man-esque, and Lundy and Eric might murder me. I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass right now.
Spider-Man-esque.
It feels
you can say Spider-Man-esque. I don't care.
Yeah, it feels very on theme with Spider-Man media of he's trying to do something good, but it ends up triggering something that gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's, this game starts out with Fisk is going to prison, and you feel, I caught the bad guy, but then demons move into that power vacuum and it just goes to hell.
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite things about Fisk as a villain, and this is applicable both in Spider-Man and in Daredevil, is that he presents this kind of character where, he is able to do these things, like he's got kind of the right motives, he wants to protect the city, he wants things to be, good kind of for everybody, but only on the condition that he personally benefits from it. And that's what makes him a villain, like with Spider-Man and with Daredevil, when they're put next to Wilson Fisk, it creates a narrative of, do the ends justify the means? And, is the end result worth whatever it costs? And Spider-Man and Daredevil both stand on the no, like how we do things matters. We need to do the right thing because it's right, even though Wilson Fisk is getting results that might seem good from, a certain perspective. They might seem kind of overly beneficial. Like the city was held in a pretty, a relatively stable place before Spider-Man locked Fisk up in this game. And then that power vacuum leads something to go worse. But, really the question is like, okay, but did those ends justify the means of what he was doing? Or like, it raises an interesting ethical question, like, should we treat the means as ends in and of themselves? And that's just one of the things that I love about Wilson Fisk's presence in any medium, is he kind of brings that element into it, where it's, okay, yeah, we see what his end goal was, and he's a bad guy, but we have to think about more than just that on the surface.
Yeah, a lot of the things that Fisk is in, they make a pretty solid argument for him as a necessary evil, which makes him such a compelling villain, because there's things where you're like, well, like maybe it was fine when he was kind of pulling the strings a little bit, because these demons are not fun. Like maybe it was okay. Maybe we should have let him stay in charge. So, and he even, like in the comics, there's a bit where Fisk runs for mayor and wins. It's like straight up a crime lord, and New York's like, that's fine. Like
the Chip Zdarsky run for Daredevil really does a great story where, it's Mayor Fisk, and that's what Daredevil Born Again is going to do here in a couple weeks, is put him in that position. But that,
which might be out by the time this airs. So
yeah. It's true. Yeah. Pulling back the curtain a little bit to how far in advance
we don't pre-record. We do them the day before. It's live.
But
we'll
seriously,
do it live.
If anybody wants to know like a good comic arc that has some good Wilson Fisk moments and things in there, Chip Zdarsky, his run on Daredevil was fantastic, and that it's pretty recent too.
So it's a bit of counterfactual that he's postulated here, that this, that he will be needed back because I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. He created the power vacuum, and that the demons are encroaching on, and they are taking his vacuum, right? He created this power that he was taking advantage of, and that he was kind of using for nefarious purposes. And so if he hadn't created it in the first place to use for his own nefarious purposes that he shouldn't have been using it for, then the demons wouldn't have been able to get in there after he got taken to prison to be able to start using it for their own nefarious purposes. So is he a necessary evil? Well, if he hadn't been there in the first place to ascend to his power, then the demons wouldn't have been able to jump in there into the power vacuum to create their own chaos. And I kind of like also really like I've always loved the theory of like of Christopher Nolan's Batman and Joker theory of like, because Batman exists, there has to be an opposite equal reaction to his existence. And then we see the calling card for the Joker as foreshadowing for the next movie. So his existence creates the opposite reaction, and then we get the Joker. So it's really just like this pendulum swinging of power, and like so I don't know, that's kind of like a tangential jump in logic of what I'm trying to say, but it's like, is Spider-Man existing creating Fisk, or Fisk existing creating the demons? And just like, if none of these people existed, would there not be the opposing forces?
I mean, yeah, I think the idea of Fisk kind of creating this power and then So it's almost like he's a parasite. He comes into this city and then works himself in and then gets his fingers into so many things that once he becomes a necessity almost. And then once he's gone, it's like missing the hole that he dug. You know, he dug a hole and filled it in, and then when you take him out, then there's a hole there. And so I think that that's an interesting concept.
Yeah,
I like Fisk a lot in this, in everything, and in this game, he's a super interesting and cool villain. So
he
it's a
made
good one to
himself
start with.
necessary to his world that he created, and I think that's beautiful because it's like what is that concept of like a dead man's switch, right? Where it's like you leave the conditions by which if you are killed that that it would leave a chain reaction that would leave an explosion or something, thus to try to protect your own demise to be prevented.
Like
It's
that
kind of
army
word
guy
soup.
in Lost.
Yeah,
He
exactly
put the bomb
like that.
trigger on him if he dies.
Yeah, so the heart rate doesn't go out. A dead man switch. It feels like Fisk created that by creating this circumstance for him to exist. I don't know. It kind of feels like that.
One of the interesting ironies in this, though, is like, because Fisk does want himself to be that, he wants to be a necessity, that things don't work without him. But, and we can see that when he goes away, like the demons come in and they make things pretty terrible. But had Fisk never gone away, everything with Otto still would have happened and put the city in chaos, and so Fisk didn't, like, his existence doesn't prevent that. It maybe helps amplify it because Otto's able to capitalize on the chaos that the demons are sowing. But Fisk isn't as necessary as he likes to believe because, Dr. Octavius still would have gone crazy and built arms and things, things that are coming up later in this game. That would have happened.
He's going to do what?
Yeah, weird, right? But like all of that, that's just a dynamic purely between Otto and Norman. And Fisk doesn't play into that at all and wouldn't, he's powerless to stop that. And so as much as he feels he's a necessity, things get worse because, that's just how it is with Spider-Man. Everything compounds on itself and just gets as big and volatile as possible and pushes him right to the edge. But even with Fisk staying in power and maintaining that power balance, the Dr. Octavius story still would have gone, down that path, and Fisk is powerless to stop that.
Can we talk about the super cool crane falling in the helicopter now? I love this part of the game.
Okay, so this is one of a few cornerstones of any good Spider-Man property, which is a very fantastically crafted set piece for an action sequence, and it has to be some, like, I haven't thought through like all of the elements, but it has to be some choreography that demonstrates his alacrity and his precision and his necessity to protect everybody. Every single person has to be protected, and everything has to be going to shit as fast as possible, and he just has to be thwipping everywhere, right? It's just like
they're mandatory thwipping, yeah.
Mandatory thwipping as fast as humanly possible, and it just has to be compounding variables over and over, and this just nailed it. And so like I want to, like, the original Spider-Man, like, you think of all these iconic moments, like you get like the train sequence, you get some of the new Spider-Man, like you get the bridge scene in Andrew Garfield, and then in the new one you get the boat scene, and then in here, like, this feels like one of them, like one of many fantastic set pieces.
Yeah, well, they're the moments where he has to, put on his big boy Spidey boots. Because I feel like there's times where Spider-Man is like jumping around and making jokes. But then as soon as it's like he needs to be serious and focused, he's incredibly capable of like, which is another argument for Peter Parker has ADHD. Where it's like hyper focused on, he's like, oh, this is the most important and this is the only thing that I'm focused on right now. And I love this sequence. The helicopter explodes, the crane, and this huge crane starts to fall. And I love how he does this thing where he like flips around it as he's webs it. So he like webs it to a wall to keep it from falling. Like he doesn't try to like grab it and stop it like at the ground. He's like webs it to the side of a building. And then I love the way that they frame it. There's part where like the end of after he webs like the arm of the crane to the building, there's like the hook of the crane is swinging down super hard, and he like grabs it with his webs and he swings it back up so that it doesn't hit like some people on the ground. And then it cuts to this view of like on top of a building, and there were these people like sitting and hanging out, eating lunch. And then this huge like hook from a crane just like slams into a wall, and then webs hit it, and then Spider-Man goes flying by and he's like, hi. Like I just it's such a it's a good mixture of like humor and just like why does anyone live in Marvel's New York? It's just like like just insane things happening constantly all the time. And while all this is happening, Spider-Man has accidentally webbed like a huge wrecking ball to the bottom of this helicopter that's just flying around with a wrecking ball, just like smashing buildings. And he's webbing up this crane, and then he has to go chase the wrecking ball helicopter. And people are just having lunch on top of buildings in New York. It's like
insurance rates must be crazy in Marvel's New York.
Yeah, they're nuts.
Can't even imagine.
It's just like Florida and California. It's just like one of those cities where it's uninsurable.
City gets wrecked every other weekend.
It's only for the wealthy and elite.
But I really love. So I have a question for you guys. This sequence is basically a QuickTime event. QuickTime event, for those of you who like, I'm sure that anyone listening knows what a QuickTime event. But a QuickTime event is where basically a cutscene plays, or a QTE. A cutscene plays, and you have to push buttons at the right time to make the cutscene continue playing. And if you don't, you fail. And it's like QTEs have been kind of crapped on for video games for not being very engrossing. Resident Evil 4, I feel like, was the birthplace of the QTE.
Yeah, did they?
And
I was
they're
gonna
not
ask,
great.
Did it create them?
I think it might have. I'd have to do more research.
Krauser?
But like Krauser, the whole boss fight with Krauser is just a QTE. But I wanted to ask the question, QTEs in games can be super dumb and really boring, but I love this one. I love webbing the things to the side of the building. I love pulling up the crane and keeping it from smashing people. And I don't understand why. Why do you guys think that it's okay that this is a QTE, but I hate tapping the button to run away from the boulder in Resident Evil 4?
Yeah, I actually had this on my notes. This is one of the few times where a QuickTime event just hits.
Why? Tell me why, Tucker. Why do you love it?
It just feels, I don't know. It's like running away from a boulder, hitting the button, like mashing it doesn't really do anything. In these QuickTime events, when you hit a button, you're doing some action, I think. So like webs are flying out. You're swinging around doing something crazy. I think that's why the QuickTime events work here. It's not just button mashing for button mashing's sake. They feel very actionable, and I think that's where Insomniac does a really good job, because I think all of their Spider-Man games incorporate a QTE at some point.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It doesn't feel as frenetic and chaotic. It's really just do it so that
it's pretty mellow. Well, it's usually you have to drag the thing with the cursor. You like there's a cursor and you have to drag it to the right spot, and then you push a button. And so it's like, maybe it's because it's a little more interactive. I don't know. They're not like amazing, but they're more fun than any other QT I've played.
It's almost impossible to lose. So whereas like Resident Evil, like I get smashed by the boulder all the time because I'm not fast enough. Like here,
you gotta really push that button.
Yeah, here it's like, it's almost impossible not to get the stick into that circle. Like, so it's not about losing and being perfect. It's about participating.
Yeah.
I think that to build on that, like it helps you participate, but it also gets you a little bit more immersed, and it builds on itself as this whole set piece unfolds, to the point, like you start and it's like, okay, we hit a couple buttons and we take care of the crane, and then like you are actively web swinging and chasing it down, and then it kind of leads into the next thing. And instead of just being, okay, like we're web swinging and then cutscene and then web swinging and then cutscene, it's keeping you a little bit engaged, but it gets to the point where at the end it fully immerses you, where like, when the helicopter, the main body of it's crashing down, Spider-Man does a backflip off, and the camera transitions to a first person.
Oh, that's
and you
right.
see the two hands right there in front of you, and you have to thwip a bunch to create a web to catch the helicopter. And I think that's such a brilliant way to end it, because, speaking at least for myself, but I think that it's probably true of like the vast majority of men, like being Spider-Man is a fantasy that everybody has to at least a little bit of a degree. Like everybody
I'd
wants
literally
to be
kill
Spider-Man.
any one of you if someone told
Like-
me I could be Spider-Man
Okay,
afterwards.
there's
Like,
not
everybody-
man alive that has not tried to like pick up something across the room and flipping at it. Like
Yeah.
everybody's
Everybody's
done
tried
at
that.
least once. Yeah.
And everybody, you know, like you get a room full of guys and everybody has that thought where it's like, everybody likes Spider-Man, but like I am Spider-Man, right? Like everybody has that thing. Like Eric's probably the only person that's true for, where it's like, okay, you know, like if I'm in a room with Eric,
Well,
it's
the
like,
mask
okay,
would chafe my beard. I don't know.
yeah, but like, you know, if I'm in a room with Eric, I'm going to be like, well, he's actually Spider-Man. I'm not Spider-Man. But if I'm in a room with anybody that's not Eric, I'm like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. I'm the Spider-Man in this room. And so to be able to do that, it like, you know, it's this big epic set piece, and it ends with you experiencing being Spider-Man and seeing those things and like having to hit the L2 and R2 buttons, you know, as if they're the web shooters. Like it's just a brilliant way to end it, to really immerse the player and sell that concept that you in this moment are Spider-Man.
I had the realization this last time I was playing that I don't fantasize so much about the Spider-Man half as I realized that I relate the most to Peter Parker half, and that's what I find the most aspirational for who I am. But I can get into that at some other point. Oh, just like it's slightly different, but that's what I care about.
No, man.
Other people want
the web shooters.
the fantasy stuff.
I want the fantasy stuff. I want to swing from buildings. What's this Peter Parker nonsense? I want to be Spider-Man.
I want to thwip.
I want to thwip
Damn
all
it.
this stuff. No, but I love this. I think the sequence is so fun, and I love how they cap it off because you chase the helicopter through, and then Spider-Man does this awesome thing where the helicopter is falling, and then he like shoots webs and attaches it to the helicopter, and then like rides the helicopter on this crazy arc as it like almost crashes into the ground. And then he swings up really high, and then as it's falling, it goes in that first person thing, like Lundy said, and then it catches it, and then he lands on top of it, and the camera looks away, and it looks like a fly caught in a spider web. And I just love the like, such a cool image, and it's like it's a very obvious, like, you know, the helicopter is a flying thing, and it's a fly caught in a spider web. It's like not subtle imagery. It's very surface level. It's so stupid, and I still love it anyways. It's just fun to like. I love it. Just Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys
It
knew
gets
that
a
about me.
little campy for fun.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a little bit of campiness.
Right. Well, and I think that they knew that that's an effective tool because at least, you know, I'm pretty sure the first trailer for this game just showed this set piece. Like, that's what it was. You know,
That's
like
correct.
they were like, all right, we're announcing this. Here's this game. And I remember watching it and being like, I have to play whatever that, like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You know, like they really helped set the tone.
So do I pay now, or like, what do you want all of it, or so just some of my money? Like, what do you need?
Like,
Yeah.
How many of my children do I have to sign away? Like, you know, should I ever have them? Like, they're just, yeah. No, that
Let that
though,
be
like,
motivation for you to go have children.
yeah,
Yeah, Lundy owes 5 kids to Insomniac Games, so
worth it though. But yeah, like it was an effective way for them to, you know, I mean, there was one thing that was two things that were slightly different. One was a big controversy on the internet with Puddlegate.
I know
yeah,
Puddlegate,
those puddles.
Those
The
puddles,
puddles
were
weren't good enough in the released version. They were
Yeah.
so much
Stupid.
better in the E3 trailer.
Yeah,
The
But
internet's
also,
the worst.
Race.
also, if you remember in that E3 trailer, it was Martin Lee in the helicopter instead of just some random generic
Yes.
demon.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they used this set piece to help be like, this is the tone that we're going for. This is what you can expect. And I like that it was a pretty early on event in the game that it's like, okay, you know, it doesn't take a super long time to get there. You play it and you're like, all right, yeah, this is what I saw. And then the game just continues to build and escalate from there.
I just started Parks and Recreation today, and I was just thinking of the line, "We're calling it Puddle Watergate until we come up with a snappier name."
Yeah, but it was actually on the internet. People referred to it as Puddlegate because it's like the puddles in the trailer were shinier and they looked better and there were more of them. And then in the release version, there were less puddles, and PC people were unhappy about it. Which I think, as far as things that you can get upset about, is one of the stupidest things I think you could get upset about. I don't get it.
There's nothing
I don't get it.
beneath a PC person to get upset
Nothing.
about.
Yeah.
They are superior to us. They are better people. They have superior intellect. they
all
they
tracks.
can see things that none of us can see, which is
Puddles,
why they
mostly.
deserve superior hardware. We must walk behind the PC people. They are
For they are our masters.
For they are our masters. But in all honesty, yes, they deserve the title of master race, and everything they say goes. So Puddlegate, legitimate argument, and they put that one to bed. And Insomniac apologized, I'm sure, at some point. And
I think in the PS5
that's why they
re-release-
shot for ray tracing.
Yeah. Well, I think actually in the PS5 re-release in this scene, like for the remaster version, I think that there are more puddles again. I might be wrong, but I feel like don't quote me on that, but it just seems like, or maybe they're worse. Maybe they took all the puddles away. That would be even funnier.
I honestly didn't even think to check when I got the remaster after playing the original, because
I didn't either, because it doesn't matter.
I don't buy a Spider-Man game because of puddles. I buy a Spider-Man game because of Spider-Man. Like, it's weird, I know, right? Like,
however, they got the ultimate mic drop with ray tracing over the ocean. How badass is that in Spider-Man 2? I mean, to put Puddlegate to shame, that's a mic drop
puddle,
right there.
The biggest puddle.
Yeah,
exactly.
Can't get a bigger puddle than that.
I mean, obviously they had to like do compromises to get there, but like nobody could have like seen that coming. That is incredible technical accomplishment. So anyway, all right. So yeah, are we moving on? You have something?
I was just going to say, yeah. At the end of the scene, when you see the thing all webbed up and the helicopter's webbed up in the webs, and then it pans away and you see a Mr. Miles Morales holding up his phone, taking pictures of Spider-Man, nerding out a little bit, which is pretty cool, I think. And his friend is like, "Come on, Miles!" And so anyone who knows anything about Spider-Man is like, "Oh, it's Miles Morales." So it's exciting to get a quick little sneak peek at Miles, and then it goes back to swing away as Spider-Man. You have a phone call with Mary Jane, and you agree to go to the Osborn rally together. So Osborn rally is another super cool part of the game. I know. I did the exact same thing. MJ was like, "Hey, do you want to go together?" And Peter's like, "Okay." And I went, "Ooh." Like, ooh, MJ wants to hang out with Peter. Just so adorable. I can't help it. Yeah. Couple of cuties.
I don't know. Do you ship them, or are you Team MJ
course.
or Team Gwen?
Team MJ, hardcore.
I don't know.
Even though the child is named after Gwen Stacy.
Listen, it depends. It depends on the iteration. In the Andrew Garfield ones, I think that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's chemistry is some of the best on-screen chemistry I've ever seen. So hardcore, like Peter and Gwen in that one for sure. So it just depends on the iteration that I'm reading. Comics version, it's usually all about MJ, and I'm here for that. In this like iteration, Insomniacs, I think that Peter and MJ they're peanut butter and jelly. They fit together. So yes, 100%. But in sometimes it's like, Gwen is the better person for Peter. The Amazing Spider-Man series, the movies did that really well. Gwen Stacy is an amazing character in those.
Emma Stone could have chemistry with a brick. She is a gorgeous human being,
She's
an
great.
amazing actress, but she is the one that convinced me to be a Gwen person because she has a spunkier personality and she's more fun. And MJ's kind of milquetoast after that. So that's where I'm at with it. And plus she becomes Spider-Gwen. So what does MJ do?
Well, it depends in some
She
in
has
some
a broken
universes.
moral compass and she just like breaks up with Peter way too many times.
That's on the writers, not on Peter. That's on the writers. Writers refuse to let Peter be happy.
Which is pretty true to
a full-on
Spider-Man.
argument between Shan, Eric, and Lundy defending MJ versus Gwen.
MJ makes Peter settle down.
My personal
Okay.
Gwen doesn't care.
where I think,
All right.
in fact, in this game, I think it settles the Gwen versus MJ debate for me at least. And we talked about it last time with the Stan Lee cameo. I don't think it was unintentional for Stan Lee to say, "You two were always my favorite."
Mm-hmm.
I think that Stan Lee is saying that the MJ Peter relationship is better than Peter plus anybody else.
Oh, Stanley
Okay,
has gone
maybe
on
it's
record
better
on
for
more
Peter.
he's gone on record on more than one occasion that's like Stanley's like, I wrote MJ for Peter. That's who he's supposed to be with. That's like,
So,
yeah.
it's, like, I don't think that it was an accident that's the line that they put in there in his cameo in this game is, you two were always my favorite. Like, it's true in universe, but it's also kind of a meta phrase where he's saying, like, yeah, this is my favorite pairing. And so for me, that settles the debate.
Okay, but again, like, I'm working off of, like, I had Kirsten Dunst versus Emma Stone. So
Yeah, and that's not even a competition. Yeah.
It's not a competition.
So, and it's like,
Kirsten
versus Emma
Dunst had
Stone.
Kirsten Dunst had the rain scene, and as a kid, that messed me up for a while.
Yeah, just hitting puberty right at the right moment.
yeah, it's just, we were all on the cusp of puberty. Rainy kiss scenes were a thing. It was the early 2000s.
I'm just imagining Shan
It was
like
the year 2000.
I'm imagining Shan being like the dean in Community, where he's like, I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
That's exactly what for Shan and thousands of teenage boys across America.
The year 2000, I think it was the year 2000 or 2001, was the year that all of us hit puberty at the same time. Our balls dropped. We had our first pube. And
As a late
Kirsten
bloomer, it
Dunst
was
had
2015 for me.
and Kirsten Dunst had the rain scene, and we could see her tatas through her booby shirt that they made very. I don't know. They knew exactly what they were doing. It's transparent. I don't know what color it was because it wasn't opaque enough. So
They hadn't figured out the bra technology yet to really.
I don't think that society has had enough of a conversation about this. We all just like silently.
Shan clearly wants to talk about this.
We were all just like tacitly nodded and went along with it, and we didn't have a conversation. We went to the theater with our parents.
This was at the height of Friends. Friends did that. Friends brought the braless hard nips to the mainstream.
I think that maybe just bras were terrible in the 90s.
She did that for like, what, 10 years and we didn't talk about it? That's crazy.
I mean, arguably, we could take this back even further because in the original Star Wars trilogy, Carrie Fisher didn't wear a bra because George Lucas told her that people don't wear underwear in space.
And that
seems like that
one's creepy. So listen, I've heard that before, and that one is not. That's not a good argument.
Don't wear clothes.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
George
defending
Lucas
it. I'm
being
just
creepy.
saying that's what it is. Like that's
probably
where it started. Like George Lucas.
The lore. He could have said they wore underwear in space. He creates the lore.
Yeah. George Lucas just comes up with a weird idea and is kind of just a weird guy in the 70s, and that was the first domino that led to the Kristen Dunst rain scene in Spider. Like they're connected.
George Lucas says, "I am the architect of this universe, and this universe, ladies don't wear underwear." Yeah. So, you're the 19-year-old girl, don't wear underwear. I think Carrie Fisher was young. She was like 19 in that first movie. I think
she was really young. Yeah, she was. I think
it's creepy. Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's gross. In case you didn't dislike George Lucas enough, there's one more reason. Yeah.
Jar Jar Binks it for me. I don't need anything more.
He's just made so many mistakes in his life. That is one of them.
Yep.
So who here hasn't tried the Spider-Man kiss from that movie though?
It's the second time I kissed a girl. That's what I did. It was like as soon as I got a girl to agree to kiss me, I was like, now can we Spider-Man kiss? Like
that's the one. That's the one we're gonna do.
It's a rite of passage amongst our generation. It's like, okay, but like once you get to that relation, that's a relationship milestone for people our age. It's like, okay, well, we got to get the Spider-Man kiss. Like, she's not your girlfriend unless you've Spider-Man kissed her. Well,
and that's how you weed out the people in your life that you know aren't going to be a lasting relationship. You're like, "Can we Spider-Man kiss?" And they say no, and they're like, "Oh, well, then this is our last date." That thank you for.
Yeah, it's first base, Spider-Man kiss, second base.
Yeah,
and
the
and
chain
I
of
command. I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was like the Apple TV Plus show, like For All Mankind. Maybe I'm misremembering the show where they kissed upside down. I was like, did you really just do a Spider-Man kiss? It owns that. It owns.
Are other shows
kiss.
Allowed to do that?
You can't do that kiss. That reminds me of, what was it, 30 Rock? It's like somebody says that's what she said, and Tina Fey's like, or Liz Lemon, she's like, no, Steve Carell owns that. He owns that.
No one else. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I love the
Miles
Oscorp rally.
Morales.
Are we ready to talk
The
about the
second
Osborn
scene.
rally? Yeah. Ooh, so fun. So the Osborn rally, I think, is so fun. And I know that this is going to be like Eric is a hypocrite because I don't really like the MJ missions in this game, but I love this Miles mission and I'll tell you why it's different. So
because you're a man.
Because it's because I'm a man, and
is it because you're black?
I'm very sexist, and I don't like playing as women, and that's the only reason. That's what it is.
Is it because she's a redhead?
It's because I can't emotionally identify with anyone who's physically different from me in any way. So no, I mean it's because this is a very cool scene. So you go to the Oscorp rally, and I love this part. You start off kind of seeing things through Peter Parker's view, and he's there with MJ, and they're kind of talking about the demons, and they're like, "Hey, Peter's like, I think this whole thing is about to be done. I think I've kind of like, this thing with the demons is done." He's of course very, very wrong, and then all of a sudden, his spider sense goes, for lack of more scientific terms, absolutely bananas. It just it completely consumes everything. He's like in the middle of saying something to MJ, and he just stops and starts walking away. And it does this thing that it uses a phrase that I think we've kind of coined in previous episodes when talking about The Last of Us, as Peter goes into this kind of liminal headspace where everything around him closes, and it's just like he's just very focused on his spider sense and trying to locate where the danger is. And it's this all-consuming. It's one of the only times in the game where we see it this loud and this effective, where it's just like it's all he can focus on because there is intense danger and it's imminent. And so then we see that Osborn is giving like a rally speech, and he's congratulating Miles, his dad, up on there because Osborn can never miss an opportunity to grandstand and to, oh, I'm so cool. Look at me honoring this hero police officer, which is like, of course he does. And I feel it. He does this thing where I always thought when playing the game, I was like, man, he saved Miles' dad, Jefferson, does this thing with Spider-Man. He saves Spider-Man. And then the next day he's getting an award. When has anything ever moved that fast? And this playthrough, I've realized that Osborn is having a rally anyways. And then this happens and he's like, oh, well, we'll just bring Jefferson up while I'm having this rally that I've already scheduled to get more political points, So very Osborn
move.
move.
In real life now. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very sneaky Osborn move, just kind of giving him a medal or whatever. And so right after Jefferson gives his speech, there are straight up suicide bombers on the stand and in the crowds and all around. And that's what's causing Spider-Man's spider sense to go crazy, which is this is a very harrowing, real, grounded, intense event for a Spider-Man game. And it kind of it really shook me the first time I played this game, where I was like, oh man, they're not pulling their punches. What do you guys think about this scene? And this, I love this part.
Yeah. It's a terrorist attack, and they don't usually get this visceral, and I think I kind of just dismissed it actually the first time, and it was more grounded and disturbing this time. And I think it's because between let's see, when's the last time I played this? It was on the PS4, and it was when I got I want to say probably 2018. Is that about when this game came out? Maybe a year or two later. Maybe 2020. Anyway, between then and now, there's been a lot more political violence, and so this actually felt more real and scary and true to life because it feels like things are escalating and there's a lot more tension in our country, and so it just that actually made it feel awful. I don't want this, and I don't want this to become real. So anyway, it gave me anxiety to see this play out.
I love the contrast of Peter Spider-Man saying, I think I got this demon thing about wrapped up. Because to him, it's a small little skirmish, that somebody's maybe trying to fill the vacuum. Doesn't really matter. I've killed, caught a bunch of bad guys. This can't be that big. And this is the moment, I think, where it's eye-opening of like, oh, this is a lot bigger than we originally expected. It's kind of been building up. You're kind of teased, I think, with Otto of thinking, okay, the big villain in this, kind of where's Dr. Octavius going to come in? That's kind of at least for me, that was the big villain. It's like, okay, I know this is going to change. He's going to become Doc Ock, and I'm going to have to fight him. He's the main villain of the game. And this demon thing is to keep me busy. First time playing through, that was my, thoughts. And then this mission, this cutscene is like, oh, no, these guys are going to be here a lot longer than just before Doc Ock comes. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Eric, and you, Shan, of just, it's more real, it's more grounded, more dark than, there's no time for joking in this scene. There's no, fun, Spider-Man wit.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first time that I played through it, like it caught me so off guard, like, that because I had obviously watched all of the trailers and everything and was like really excited about it. But this scene happened, and when you start playing as Miles, like Miles gets up off the ground and just over to the side is Peter lying there unresponsive with MJ like shaking and being like, Peter, please wake up. Peter, wake up, please. Like, and she's like begging. And I thought, because I was just so like shocked and engrossed and like just caught up in the moment, that I forgot everything else about the game and legitimately thought to myself, like they might, because in the comics, the way that they introduced Miles Morales, it was right on the tail of the Death of Spider-Man comic in the Ultimate Universe, which is a great, great story. If you haven't read it, like highly recommend Death of Spider-Man. Just fantastic. Just pretend that he doesn't get resurrected after, because that always ruins any Death of comic.
No one ever stays dead in comic books. It's
nobody ever stays.
Yeah.
But
I wish they would.
Except for Uncle Ben.
Yeah, except for
Uncle Ben. He's the one constant. He's the only one.
I completely forgot that I thought the first time that maybe Peter Parker actually died and it was going to be a Miles Morales story. I mean, the story wouldn't have made sense, but...
Right, but it was just, I was so caught up in the moment, and I was like, this is what they're doing. Like, I was just kind of blown away that it was like, is this really where they're going with it? Like, they killed Peter Parker right here and Miles Morales, and they're just handing the baton off right now. Like, it was so shocking to me. And the thing is, like,
halfway through the first game, they're like, all right, now you have to play as a different Spider-Man.
That would have made so many people
many people mad.
You thought The Last of Us was bad, switching over to Abby.
And I mean, you already got people mad at the second Spider-Man game for doing that without killing Peter, like being well, you play as both of them, and they're like, well,
do people not like that?
Oh,
that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
There's a whole movement on the internet of a bunch of really dumb people who they let their rallying cry is Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales, and it's like, actually, they're both Spider-Man, and you're dumb. Like,
I hate that. Miles is awesome.
It's like puddles, then that.
So get your priorities straight. Worry about the puddles. Yeah.
So here's the thing, and I have to keep pointing this out. They never make the argument that they're really making, right? The arguments always come up when it's about the protagonist being not who they want, but they never make the actual argument, which is they are uncomfortable with the protagonist. They make a completely different argument of like, oh, this is bad writing, this is something else, and such and such. But it's always... the arguments always come up when it's the protagonist is not who they wanted. Yeah,
it's interesting that they're so staunch about Miles Morales is Miles Morales, but they never ever seem to have a problem with Ben Reilly or Spider-Man 2099. There's a lot of and these are characters that stretch way back. Like Ben Reilly's from the 90s.
In the 90s, like, the clone, the clone story, or I was going to say Clone Wars, but that's not right. The Clone Saga.
The Clone Saga. Like, this isn't, there's the Spectacular Spider-Man comic where Otto Octavius takes over Peter's body, and I haven't read it, but I've heard it's actually a really interesting, good run.
Yeah, and people love that.
And people love that, and but Otto Octavius is Otto Octavius, or is Otto Octavius Spider-Man in this? Like, it's interesting to me that there's only one alternate Spider-Man that people seem to have a problem with.
I genuinely had no idea that people had a problem with Miles, because he's awesome. And I will say that when I didn't read the Death of Spider-Man comics, but I had always been like a big Spider-Man fan from the beginning. So when I kind of got wind of like, you know, Spider-Man dying and then just immediately being replaced by a different person, at first I was kind of like, I don't know about that. And then I watched the Spider-Verse movies and I played this game and the Miles Morales game. And I was like, Miles is kind of awesome. And I went back and I read the comic and I appreciated it a lot more. But it's like, it was something that I didn't hate at the beginning. I just didn't really experience it. And I was like, I don't know. Spider-Man is Peter Parker. It's an important part of his character. And then once I kind of took the time to get to know Miles' character, I was like, no, Spider-Man, can be whoever is willing to step up and sacrifice the way Spider-Man does. It doesn't have to be Peter.
Yeah. So this is my, I come in with like my counter argument, which is like, I'm not calling everybody who's making this argument a racist. I don't think you can paint people with that broad of a brush.
Yeah.
Because like
racist.
that is
If
too
you're a racist,
broad of an
I will
argument.
attack you with the North.
With the North, right? It's too broad of a brush, and I don't think people are that overtly racist. I think it's just when the protagonist is swapped out with the opposite gender or with a white person for a black person, it causes such an immediate shock to like what they are used to. It is such a contrast to what they are normalized to expect that it is the first time that they deeply consider what they are comfortable with. And that is the first time that they start wondering, what do I actually want? And what am I comfortable with? And then they start having these questions of like, what is Spider-Man? So it's not like I don't want a black person. It's I've never considered what is Spider-Man. Maybe it is only Peter Parker. And then there is a fragment or a fraction of those people that are bad faith actors that actually are racist, but it's not all of them. And they're stoking the fires and trying to upvote the worst of the worst. And they are outspoken and speaking for the worst of them. But it's not all of them. And they are probably being manipulated and emotionally taken advantage of by the worst of the worst. But they are not representative of like, they're not all racist. That's all I'm trying to say is most people are really good people. They're just being taken advantage of emotionally when they are confused about what they really want.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Miles is amazing, and give him a chance. If you're one of those people that's like, I don't know about Miles as Spider-Man, give him a chance. Read some comics, watch the Spider-Verse movies, which are spectacular.
So good.
Play the Miles Morales game, play this game, play the Spider-Man 2. Miles is a genuinely awesome character that has a lot of the right characteristics to make a good Spider-Man while still being different enough from Peter to be his own character.
In Spider-Man 2, when I had the option, I always played as Miles.
He has the more fun swinging animations.
And has the more fun suits, has the more fun powers, in my opinion, with the electricity.
Here's the thing. I prefer Miles only because like I've seen Peter Parker's origin story and his stories 5 different times now over the last 20 years. So Miles was like the first time I got to see a Spider-Man in a completely different way with new villains and a different story and different like side characters like Rio and Jefferson Davis. And I get to see the same warmth. I get to see the same motivation and same values through a completely different lens. And so I still relate to him. I still care about him, but same energy. But like I fall in love with him for slightly different reasons, and I'm endeared to him. So it's like I get Spider-Man, but I get a completely different story, and I love it.
Yep. I love that to kind of circle back to the point I was trying to make earlier. I love that this little mission where you get to play as Miles, because you get a little peek into his world at the beginning before he's Spider-Man, and you get to see some of the characteristics that make him a good Spider-Man long before he ever gets his spider powers. And so I like this mission better than the Mary Jane missions because I feel like even though the gameplay is similar, where you're just kind of a regular person walking around, it serves a much greater story purpose than any of the Mary Jane missions. The Mary Jane missions feel like they're just kind of filling a quota and trying to diversify the gameplay. And so, and by doing so, it feels like they're like, okay, well, we should have a Mary Jane chapter here and let's try to work some story into that. This part, it seems like this is a very purposeful story-driven moment that Miles needs to be a part of. And I love that you get to play as Miles in this moment where, you know, his mom pulls him out of the rubble and you're not sure if Miles is okay. And then, you know, he's like, Mom, I gotta go. Or she's like, I'm gonna go check for my dad. And then he has to end up saving his mom and he can't pull up the thing with his own strength. Like this thing collapses on top of his mom and he's not able to pull it up with his own strength. And so he gets a lever and pushes it open, which shows like thinking on his feet, you know, being smart and using his brain and being using his ingenuity, which is a very Spider-Man thing. Ingenuitive is not a word, but
showing his ingenue.
Ingenue, yeah. And so, which is a very Spider-Man thing. And then he goes, you know, he's sneaking around these demons that are just straight up killing people. Miles crawls past a dead body in a car and watches multiple people get gunned down point blank right in front of him. Miles is like 15 right now, I think. That's pretty horrifying.
For an African American, you can never really tell, right? Like he could be 13, he could be 12. You don't really know.
Who knows? I think that in this version he is 15. I think that I might be wrong on that, but I think that that's the age that they have him at.
He's definitely in high school.
Yeah, because he's going to Brooklyn Visions, and so but he is like crawling through this rubble, and he's just trying to get to his dad because his mom got hurt and she can't go, and so he's like, "Stay here, Mom. I'm going to go find my dad," because these bombs just exploded right next to his dad. And to kind of go back to an earlier point is when the bombs are about to go off, Jefferson pushes one of the suicide bombers away and then goes to like jump on top of the guy next to him, which is like, so the heroic attitude and the bravery is something that Miles got from his dad. Like, I think they illustrate that, you know, Jefferson was a hero. He was a brave man who wanted to do good things for other people and protect other people. Miles gets that from his dad. And so he's running up to find his dad. He's sneaking past these demons and stuff. And I think it's such an important story moment to show these little moments of Miles being Spider-Man long before he gets his powers. And I think that's why I like this Miles mission. And I don't necessarily love the MJ missions, is because they feel like filler and this feels purposeful.
His stealth doesn't feel like, you know, you're going to actually get caught. You just are kind of going through the motions and you get to kind of engage in Spider-Man like acrobatics or whatever. Yeah. But I also love the body language of Miles Morales, his confidence and his courage and his, you know, his alacrity. He just like shows how purposeful and intense he is about you know, his goal of getting to his father. And I was curious what you think, like, and we'll have to get into this far more in a later time, but like what you think the core difference is between Miles before he becomes Spider-Man and Peter Parker before he becomes Spider-Man, because I don't think Peter had nearly the same courage and strength that Miles does now.
Yeah, I love what Eric said of just, you get a glimpse of Miles being Spider-Man before he gets his powers. And I think that really drills down to the difference between Peter before he gets his powers and Miles before he gets his powers. Is Miles is Spider-Man at heart. He's trying to save people. He just needs the bite. Yeah, all the characteristics are there. He just doesn't have the web slinging abilities.
Yeah, and you see in the comics, you see like Spider-Man, when he first gets his powers, Peter, when he first gets his powers, he tries to use it for personal gain, you know, he does the whole wrestling thing, he's getting money, and he's like, because he's been picked on his whole life. And so finally he's got this power and he's like, well, I'm not going to be picked on anymore. I'm going to be something. I'm going to be important. And then he makes a bad choice and something terrible happens. His uncle dies. And so the self-sacrifice and the owning up to his responsibility is a learned thing that Peter learned after he got his powers. And we see that Miles has inklings of that before he gets his powers. And he learns it a little bit after as well. Like Peter takes him under his wing and teaches him like what it means to be Spider-Man and why things are important. And, you know, we see later in the Miles Morales game that Miles has his own sacrifices and things that he has to undergo that I feel like really help turn him into the Spider-Man that he's supposed to be. But Peter, if we're painting with broad strokes and if we're kind of simplifying it, Peter got some of his core Spider-Man beliefs after he got his powers, and Miles is showing signs of them before, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. And Miles is more impulsive, and we'll learn that more in the Miles Morales game, and he has to really kind of concentrate on reining that in. I also didn't like, I had the realization that like one reason that was fantastic, like it was a lot of convenient things that came together of like, we've seen Spider-Man origin stories from Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, so we didn't have to see it here, but also because we're kind of seeing Miles Morales' origin story right now, so it would have been really inconvenient to show two origin stories in one game. Just like a lot of conveniences came together there for great storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like, you know, really they have a lot of the same values at heart, some different impulses that give them some delta. And so it's nice to, it's like we're getting sort of a Peter Parker origin stories. It's like, oh, okay, he was kind of this unrefined and raw when he started. So we're kind of getting a glimpse at Peter Parker before he started. And so it's like we're getting it anyway.
Yeah. No, I love the Miles origin story. I think that they tell kind of through this game and then a little bit at the beginning of the Miles game. But I think he's a super interesting character. I really like being in his shoes the few times that you get to in this game, particularly in this moment, because I think that it's like if we had seen this moment through Peter's eyes, I think that it could have been easy for it to be more like a big action, like, you know, save all the people, stop all the bombs, you know, whatever. But in this moment, it's like you're a regular person. The world is crumbling around you and you're trying to go find your dad. And then you find his body, which is horrifying for Miles. Like, and it just grounds this moment. It makes it more real. It ups the stakes and it really helps you to understand the loss that Miles had that could have been glossed over if you had been in Peter's shoes for this moment. So I like this moment. I like the story beats around it, and I think it leads really well into what comes next, which is Miles ending up working at Feast and stuff like that. And so I think it sets up those moments nicely.
Yeah. This is you know, every good superhero needs a fantastic emotional trauma to serve as inspiration for their origin story, and this is excellent impetus for him to be a bedrock for his core personality trait. And for Peter, it's Uncle Ben, and it has to be somebody like, I don't know, it's great for it to be somebody who's stoic and altruistic and somebody they can model themselves after. I don't know that there's really anybody better than like a Jefferson Davis or an Uncle Ben. Can you think of anybody better who had to die to make a superhero fantastic? Batman's dad was okay. He was just kind of like uber wealthy, but he still was, he's still kind of noble in a way.
Well, in the newest Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland, Aunt May fills that role. Like Uncle Ben dies, dies. We never meet him, but then in the third movie of that trilogy, Aunt May dies, and she kind of fills the Uncle Ben role, which is why Spider-Man in those movies Peter didn't quite feel like Spider-Man until No Way Home, that third movie, when he lost Aunt May. I was like, oh, this is why there was a puzzle piece missing. It's because he was, and we've talked about this in a previous episode, where all that whole trilogy was an origin story. So we don't need to get into that again, but that's another instance of like it being someone else, where it's a mother figure instead of a father figure.
I can't think of any other superhero that like really hits that emotional trauma as perfectly as Spider-Man does with either Peter Parker or Miles. Anyway, we can move on from that.
Ready for the next part? The 1 week later at Jefferson's funeral.
Yeah, so we're getting Jefferson Davis being vaulted, or vaunted, is that the right word, by Osborn to immediately to his funeral and being laid to rest in honor. So stark contrast, and I love how artistically they're able to desaturate and mute the city with the overcast skies. It really makes it somber, and I think this is one of the other cornerstones of what makes Spider-Man, which is a funeral scene.
Gotta have a funeral in the rain.
Yeah, every Spider-Man property that you've ever seen has had an iconic, impossible to forget funeral scene. And I hadn't realized that until I saw this one. It's short, but even like, what are the new ones? The animated ones, like even that one, it's like I can remember them. Like they're embedded in my memory. The new ones with Miles Morales.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, even the Spider-Verse like has iconic funeral scenes. The one where and then Andrew Garfield with Gwen dying, that one wrecks me. All of them wreck me. And why do they do that? How do they do it so well?
I think it's because we all identify, so like people of our age group, men of our age group tend to really identify with Spider-Man. And for me, at least, that's what kind of hits it home, is because it feels like a personal thing almost, even though it's not their characters. But like, I feel more personally attached to it. And so, yeah.
I think it's because it's from the POV of Peter and Miles. And so it doesn't feel like a third person aerial view of a funeral talking about the person who has passed. It's here's a funeral of the person who has passed, POV from somebody you are relating to, who's the most relatable character in comic book history, that all 30-something-year-old men or 20-something-year-old men are supposed to be directly identified with. And so and we've all at this point in our life have experienced deep emotional loss and have had to try to figure out how to navigate it. And so and now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, have I seen a movie? Have I experienced some other property that has done a POV of a young man trying to navigate a funeral and deep emotional loss like that? Maybe that's why they're always so iconic to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there has been, but none come to mind. Yeah.
Scrubs.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Scrubs does it several times. Yeah.
Brendan Fraser.
Scrubs. What a great show.
That arc in Scrubs.
Man.
Gosh, that'll wreck me. Brendan Fraser in anything.
That arc always comes to mind. Anytime anybody's like, funeral scenes or just, like any scene, doesn't even have to be a funeral, just any scene in anything that devastates you. And I'm always like, Scrubs, where do you think we are moment?
Man.
Just
I don't remember what you're talking about. Is it the Brendan Fraser thing? That's the Brendan
Fraser thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Because the whole time Dr. Cox is talking about like, oh, we've got to get to my son's birthday party, different things like that, and he's really mad at JD, and Brendan Fraser's following him around. You see the three of them kind of standing. You can't see. You can tell it's outside, and it looks kind of like a park or something, And he turns to Brendan Fraser, and he's like, "Are you going to take pictures, or whatever?" And JD's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, kid covered in cake, crying babies, that balloons, whatever. And JD kind of looks at him and goes, "Where do you think we are?" And Dr. Cox turns back, and Brendan Fraser's gone. And that's then when he has that face of realization, and he and JD walked together, and it pans out, and you see all of the headstones. And they sit down, and Brendan Fraser's picture is on the casket, and Dr. Cox just weeps, and then the credits roll.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser is one of my favorite actors of all time, and so him being blacklisted in Hollywood and going through his downbeat was emotionally devastating to me, because he was like my 90s hero. And I watched The Mummy over and over. It was like Heavyweights and Monty Python.
His
And
back-
the
he'd
Mummy
finish
and the Mummy
Heavyweights.
Returns.
And then while Heavyweights was rewinding, he'd watch The Mummy and he'd just switch them back and
Yeah,
forth all day long.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just watched The Mummy again a couple weeks ago. But did you by chance watch The Whale? The A24 film?
Oh,
Tucker
go
and I
watch The
have.
Whale. Yeah, it will freaking.
No, I've heard it's
destroy you.
great. I
And
just
Brendan
haven't.
Fraser is the greatest actor in the entire universe in that movie. So
You
good.
think, if you think that his arc in Scrubs wrecked you, no movie in human history will have destroyed you as much as The Whale. It'll rip your soul out of your body. It will just like put it in a blender. It will reveal to you every flaw that you've ever had as a human being and make you re-examine everything that you're doing wrong and say you need to be a better human being because there's not enough time left in this earth to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
I'm not even
It's
kidding.
a glowing recommendation.
I'm not
Go
even
watch
kidding.
it right now.
Like I've never cried so much during a movie, and I don't cry during movies. And
I
Tucker,
cried
you have to
all
agree,
the time.
right?
Yeah, I watched it on an airplane and I had to like cover myself.
I mean, with it being an A24 movie, that doesn't surprise me though, because I watched The Iron Claw, somewhat recently, and that was just, I was just a mess the whole time. And admittedly, I cry all the time in movies and stuff like that. Like I it's a very soft trigger for me. It's just like, I watched Lord of the Rings, and it's like basically just 3 hours of sobbing for each movie. Like it's just
Okay. Well, you're fragile. So.
yeah.
Okay, but the
Or
end
I
of
just
the-
find
end of-
meaning better than other people.
End of
I
Return of
don't
the
know. It
King
sounds like you're fragile.
was so.
It is. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Brendan Fraser, obviously, but
Well, that's it. That's the end of the episode. We're talking about Brendan Fraser, and now we're done. No, we're at the funeral scene. But so there's a nice little interaction between Peter and Miles, where Peter tries to comfort Miles, and Miles sort of shuts him down, but in a way that's still like, I know that what you're trying to do. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but like, I just let me be sad. Which is like, for anyone who's lost someone, you get that, where it's just like, thank you for sending your love, but like, I just need to be sad for a minute. Let me just be sad. And so Peter just kind of gives him a minute, and then, and then you get to swing around the city, and it's very, it's raining, but then it stops, but it does a good job, like Shan said, of desaturating the city. It's kind of gray. It feels somber without it's a little campy, but not like overly cheesy. It's still a very kind of an emotional moment where you're mourning the loss of Jefferson, because, he was a very fun character for the short amount of time that he got to be in the game. And then let's see, what do you do after that? You go to the feast office, because he's gonna go tell May about Miles and be like, hey, I know a kid who could work for Feast, and while he's there, he's gonna go check out Martin Lee's office and see if he can get more information, because Yuri is like, get me more information, make sure it's Lee. And so he goes to the Feast office to break into Lee's office and see if he can find more information. So you get a Peter Parker section where you break into Martin Lee's office and you find some stuff, and you find some cool things there that I liked this time around. You go to Martin Lee's office, and it's like, Feast is a homeless shelter. It's not like, it's nice, but it's not super fancy or like well kept or whatever, because it's a homeless shelter, and they're just kind of doing the best with what they've got, kind of a vibe. But then you go to Lee's office, and Lee's office is like kind of swanky. It's like got nice furniture. There's like plants and stuff, and he's got like a framed like shrine and like pictures on the wall, and it's like way nicer than any other room in Feast, like even nicer than May's office. And it's like a big, fairly big office. And my first thought was like, like, douche. Why is your office so nice in this homeless shelter? Like,
yeah, 5 homeless people could be sleeping in here right now.
Yeah, what the heck, man? So that was my first reaction. But then I realized why they did that is because you go into this office, and you find a hidden door that goes into a like a kind of a back room where he's got the crazy person newspapers on the walls with the strings attached to them. And there's like a voice memo of him talking crazy. And he's got all of his plans to explode New York. And it's like, it's a very dark, it's like a cement concrete room. And I realized that the reason they had his office be so nice and then that room be so nice is because that's Martin Lee's office. And then this is the demon's office. There are two people that live inside Lee. There's Martin and there's the demon. And there's a really cool note that Lee, so as you're kind of snooping through Martin Lee's office, Peter finds a note that says from Martin Lee that he's kind of like, he's almost seems hesitant about his plans that he's about to like go forward with. Because he's talking about like, oh, Fisk is gone. Now is the time. And then he says, should I turn back? A part of me wants to, but the demon is hungry. And I don't think that I'm strong enough to hold it back. And I think that paints such a cool people, that there are two people inside of Lee. And I think that you see
The Man Inside of Me by Tobias Funke.
The Man Inside of Me by Tobias Funke. So Lee has two men inside of him, and
that's the only way to phrase it.
It's the best way. Why did I say it weird? What's the problem? But
I have something of a mess on my hands.
I love the imagery of there being like
blow hard.
You blow hard. So I love the imagery of there being Martin and the demon. And it almost seems like Martin is giving up certain things that he knows are right and that are good to satisfy the demon. And the demon is maybe not wreaking as much havoc as he could or should be because he has to make deals with Martin. So I almost feel like there are these two people warring inside of him that have to make deals with each other. And Martin's like, fine, I'll go blow up a bunch of people at the Osborn rally to satisfy your need for revenge, but you have to let me, leave a note for May at the feast office so that she knows that, the feast is still good and like it's still a good place. And so it's like they have this like implied back and forth almost between the two of them that I think is really interesting.
Yeah, so that he can allow the demon to come inside of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Shan's been holding
exactly how I would have phrased it.
All right, well, and
we're just gonna let that hang in the air. No one laugh at Shan's joke. Just look at him and make him feel the shame. Like
whatever. We're all riding a high. That was amazing. That came out perfectly. It was supernatural.
I can tell when Shan has a joke because someone will be talking and Shan will just like sit on his screen just like this. Like he's just like he's got a little grin on his face, just like I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait for a break. I've got a good joke.
You guys, I had the funniest joke in like maybe in like I don't know weeks. I don't like, and it was in our text chain today. Lundy, have you played Death Stranding?
I have not.
Okay, well then this is funny. I hope this doesn't flag us. It's a little bit blurry. But Eric wants us to go to North Carolina, and in Death Stranding, there's like this beach that you go to. It's like in this other world. And this is a bit far, so you can't tell, but like Norman Reedus is nude on the beach. And if I go in any further, I don't want like the algorithm to like block us. But Norman Reedus
no butts on the internet.
He's nude on the beach and he's like handcuffed, and there are these 5 floating figures of the apocalypse, I think. And
no one really knows what happened in that game.
And
they could maybe, I don't know.
So Eric is like, "Hey, I want you to come to North Carolina and we can hang out on the beach." And he's like, and I just said, "I know how this ends," and I sent a picture of Norman Reedus on the beach nude, and I was like implying that's how it would end. And Eric had said, "Handcuffed naked on the beach? That doesn't sound so bad." I said, "No, I'm excited. You couldn't tell because it was a picture from behind."
Nice.
Nothing tickles Shan. Yeah, nothing tickles Shan quite like his own jokes.
I laughed so hard at my own humor. I didn't need anybody else to make me laugh for the rest of the day.
Yeah, he could have had that conversation
I was
all by
satisfied
himself.
and smiling.
And it would have been just as funny for him.
I needed other people to hear it so that I could laugh at it. What were we talking about? Are we?
I don't know,
Mr.
man.
Negative's office yet? I don't even know if we are.
Oh yeah,
Are we
so
in
we're
his
at
back office?
Yes, so we're in his back office and we see more about like some of his plans. There's newspaper clippings, and the thing that made me realize that like, oh, this is why there are two rooms in this space, that there's the nice office and then there's the crazy person office, is because in the nice office there's a picture of Lee's parents nice and framed on his desk. And then in the crazy office, in the crazy room, there's a negative of Lee's parents framed on the desk where it's like all the colors are inverted. And I was like, oh, and I don't know why, but I was like, oh, it's Mr. Negative. Like, it's like hitting me on the head where it's like, well, there's two offices and he's got two personalities. And I don't know why that never clicked for me until just now, but I'm a dum-dum, and this is the first time I realized that. But I like this part. You find some good information on Lee, and then as Peter's like getting ready to leave, you just like bump into Martin Lee. He's just like in the hallway and he goes, hello, Peter. Did you find what you were looking for? And it's like, oh no! Like, there's just this moment of like serious panic where you're like, is he gonna like blow up the feast center? Like, what's about to happen? Is he just gonna kill all these homeless people to stop Peter? Like, what's about to happen? Whew.
So this hit me just as hard in, I think it's the first Tom Holland Spider-Man, where he opens up the door to go to prom, and Michael Keaton is sitting there, and he's his prom date's dad. And it's just like,
how
that's
great.
one of the best
crap.
scenes in a Spider-Man movie ever.
That's one of the best twists in human history, because the twist is that you are a little bit racist and you didn't know it. I laughed so hard.
I just remember seeing that scene, like, you know, because like back in the heyday of like the MCU, you'd go to like the premiere of the movie and like it was an interactive event, you know, like the crowd reaction was like as much a part of the experience as the actual movie. And I just remember being there for that one, and when the door opened, just the audible gasps that went across the entire like everybody just like just seeing Michael Keaton be the one that answered the door and be her father. It was like just this loud audible gasp from everybody, and then dead silence for like the next like 20 minutes while everybody just sat in tension.
Well, because they have that genuinely terrifying scene of him and Peter in the car, and it's like, ooh, Michael Keaton is scary. Like, he's like, he's got a gravitas.
I feel the same way about
Close up
Michael
with his
Keaton.
eyes.
Yeah. I feel the same way about Michael Keaton as Shan feels about Brendan Fraser.
He's amazing.
He goes on about him all the time, and I love hearing about it because
there's nothing Michael Keaton can't do. You go from cheesy Batman to being hilarious
the other
in the other guys. Then you have Birdman,
so
which is weird as hell, and then you have Spider-Man, where he's just terrifying. Spider-Man, where he's just terrifying.
Yeah,
just
genuinely terrifying.
He's the head. He's like the head of police or whatever, and he's chief, like police chief.
I totally forgot he was in Other Guys.
There's a rapist in Central Park. Wait, sorry, that's my other job.
Because he works at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah. He's like, don't worry about that one.
That's right. Yes.
Oh wait, no, definitely worry about that one. If you're going through Central Park, walk in pairs.
I forgot. Yeah, Michael Keaton can do anything. Yeah.
The Other Guys is one of the most underrated comedies of all time. Like,
I'm a
it doesn't
peacock.
get
You gotta
nearly
let me
the
fly.
appreciation it deserves.
So many times.
It's a great movie. So watch The Other Guys if you haven't.
It's an Adam McKay movie, which he pairs with Will Ferrell all the time. He's an excellent writer, and he just like he's weirdly excellent at writing a depth about the financial markets. He got really into like the 2008 financial crisis, so he also did The Big Short, and it got really deep. So The Big Short is another excellent one with like Steve Carell and all those other big names.
Ryan Gosling and other people.
Yeah, he's like, I'm Jack to the tits with Ryan Gosling. Excellent quote from that movie. Love Adam McKay, very funny human being. He's Dirty Harry from Dirty Mike and the
Mike and the Boys.
Or Dirty Mike and the Boys.
Dirty Harry is Clint Eastwood.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm Dirty. Hey, are you Dirty Mike? You turned my Prius into a nightmare. We will have sex in your car. It will happen.
Thanks for the F Shack, Dirty Mike and the boys.
We found a dead mouse in a used condom. Mama Raccoon came along and blew her placenta out on the back window.
Also, I'm pretty sure that is just AJ mad-libbing that entire scene.
Yeah, probably. Well,
oh my gosh, so funny.
Anyway,
I feel like we've got a few more things. This episode's gonna be 3 hours long if we keep.
We're gonna have to cut it short. Like we're not getting through everything today.
Yeah, we might have to cut it a little bit short, but that's okay. We'll cover it next time. We're gonna stretch this out into 30 episodes. We're gonna get to the point where it's like 10% video game, 90% Shan talking about heavyweights,
and all my favorite comedies and actors.
We haven't mentioned what we do in the shadows this episode. I think that's a record.
Yeah. I found my favorite "what we do in the shadows" quote the other this and then we'll move on. I promise. There's the part
after
where
Eric does his.
After I do mine, because what I have to say is the most important. But it's when Nandor is like, "I can fly to space," and then Laszlo says like, "No, strike that," on account of it being a bullshit, and it like the way he like cracks me up. It's so funny. That's my favorite line from that whole show.
A bullshit.
It's so funny. It's just the way he's. Anyways, I'm done now.
No, he does a bullshit. That's what he does.
On account of it being, he just like does this.
Bullshit.
It's so funny. All right, so Mr. Negative, you meet him in the hallway. It's this genuinely like really tense moment, and then May comes along, and so it's the three of you kind of talking, and so Martin, Lee, and Peter are having it like a conversation without words while May is there, and it's just this really tense moment. And then as Lee goes to leave, Peter tries to follow him, and Lee just straight up like mind possesses and sicks a bunch of homeless people on him, which is really ethically questionable.
Is it questionable? I think it's just pretty clearly, blatantly wrong.
I guess, questionable is not the right word. It's a bad, don't do that. Yeah. The question is...
It's a moral gray area.
Yeah, it's a moral gray area. If you're going to possess someone, make sure it's a homeless person. Yeah.
It was a B&E, so...
Yeah. No, and so it's this, I had kind of a similar moment too, in The Last of Us Part 1, when who's the Firefly that we hate? The lead Firefly lady. Is it Marlene? Marlene. Yeah, when Marlene tries to escort Joel out of the building, and she sends one guy. She's like, one guy out of the building with Joel. And then Martin Lee, he does like 5 regular humans, and he's like, go stop Spider-Man. And they're not even like really strong regular humans. They're like people who are in a homeless shelter who are like maybe not at the top of their physical game. It's just like, all right, you 5 guys, stop Spider-Man. And Peter just like stops them in like 1.5 seconds, and then he just like I had a similar moment where I was like, why did you think that would be enough people? Like that's not enough people.
Well, I'm not sure
he
that
doesn't
Martin
know he's
Lee,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm not sure he knows that he's Spider-Man.
I think that he could probably put it together, right? Don't you think that he put it together? Why else would Peter be snooping around in his office?
Well,
maybe not. Okay, maybe not.
Peter was at the Osborn rally. That's one of the things where he was like, I didn't realize you were a fan. And that instantly puts Peter on Martin Lee's bad side, and
on his shit list.
Yeah,
on the demon side. Yeah, one of the 2 people inside of him.
Oh, you're on the other side of the political spectrum. I hate you now. It's like that.
That's what it is. So you're right. He probably doesn't know Peter is Spider-Man yet. That's probably fair. I guess I just sort of assumed that he would have put that together, but there's not a lot of actual clues for that. So you're probably right. So in that case, 5 homeless people would have probably been plenty of people to take down a regular Peter.
Eric, you need to test this out. Go find 5 homeless.
I'm going to go find 5 homeless people
and see if they can stop you.
Yeah.
Since you're the most Spider-Man of all of us.
I am physically very fit and super strong, and my muscles are big.
If you're listening on Spotify, Eric has the exact same body type as Spider-Man.
Yeah, but the kind of chubby Spider-Man from the Spider-Verse movies, the one that wears sweatpants and a bathrobe.
It's also equally limber.
Yeah. I can totally touch my toes without any difficulty. So I like that.
5 donuts in one sitting.
Oh my gosh, 5?
That's easy. That's like,
Yeah.
Well, no, I couldn't. That's way too many donuts. That's a lot of sugar. I eat 2.
5 is too
Five-
much for you?
5 donuts at once? 5 donuts? How, like normal sized donuts?
I could probably
That's
knock
like an
down a
after-dinner
dozen
snack.
and be okay. Yeah.
Are you serious right now? Maybe 2.
100%. 100%. Like I used to, so
Yeah.
I
Like cake donuts or like yeast donuts? Because that makes a difference.
that does
These
make a
donuts,
difference.
Cake donuts are garbage.
Cake donuts are a little bit more dense. So like
Whoa.
I mean,
Yeah. If I wanted
if it's cake
Hang
donuts,
on.
it's not
I would
after
have
dinner.
cake.
It's like,
Yeah.
in
That's
betwixt
breakfast.
meals.
Yeah.
But like,
Betwixt meals.
I no
Shan
joke. I
started
used
something.
to. I used
I
to
eat one
like,
donut. Tucker, I know why you struggle with weight now.
but like,
Okay, I can
so,
eat a Little Caesars pizza like.
Oh yeah,
The whale. Yeah, the whale.
Easy.
There's a
whole
scene
one?
where he just
Yeah.
binges all this
Nice.
food, and I have never identified more with a character in a movie in my entire life than
like,
Brendan
see,
Fraser.
eating
That
is
movie was
recreation. Like eating's
Holding
not
up a
like
mirror to him.
Yeah.
I have moved past that. My metabolism has officially caught up with me. Cotton has officially caught up with me. I used to be
so
able to
has
eat
mine.
like that. I
yeah,
used to
mine's-
be. Well, no, I
down.
can't anymore. It makes me like it makes me sick. I don't eat sausage anymore because it makes me like. As soon as I turned like 32, there was this whole list of foods all of a sudden that was like, don't do that anymore.
See, I
So-
can still eat the same amount. It's just that my body is like, oh, we have to hold on to all of this, and so
Yeah, exactly.
I have to like.
Oh man, I get sick. I can't do that.
I have to
anymore.
like save it for special occasions when I'm gonna binge eat. Like
got to make it worth it.
yeah, like I like no joke. Like most of the time, like especially like if I'm in a routine of working out and feel like I can justify it more, but like Saturday I celebrate what I call Fatterday, where it's just I wake up and the binge starts and I go like hard the whole day, just like shoving as much gross garbage food into my mouth as I possibly can. So like I'll do a pizza for like lunch. I'll get like a giant Philly cheesesteak for dinner. Like it's the whole day.
Oh my
like
gosh,
I'm just
man.
yeah.
This is
You're like making me
reminds me
sick by proxy.
Sounds like the best day ever.
Fatterday, like when you make it like, and it actually makes it a little bit easier to like eat clean the rest of the week. Like just be like, no, I'm just gonna bunch this all into one. Like this is gonna be my reward day, and then like you just save it all up for one day of the week instead of across the whole
is
day.
it like
I feel
that
a 30,000
scene-
calorie day would not offset the week. But
Is it like that scene from Heavyweights when they're having that food party and at the end of the night, the lesson you learn is not to put Twinkies on your pizza?
I mean, I don't think I've ever gone like
Twinkies on
that
pizza.
crazy, but like, it's it's like I'm not like creating like food abominations or anything. It's just like, I'm just eating the way that my soul wants to. Like I've treated my body for 6 days. Now my soul gets the 7th, and that's
the day of rest where you can eat all the pizza in the world.
Yeah, like
also
food coma. I'm resting. It's just
Yeah.
real fast on Heavyweights. It hit me this like last time I watched Heavyweights, meaning like I don't know 5 days ago. Then I'm pretty sure Pat
Literally
and the
yesterday.
nurse did it, and that's why he's like so happy that morning after, and he's like all cleaned up. Is I'm pretty sure they banged one out in the camp, and that's why he's like, I'm gonna respect myself now. Watch it.
He does turn it around pretty quickly.
Really fast. Yeah.
Finds a lot of self-respect within 24 hours. Okay, sure. Nurse Julie and
Nurse
Pat
Julie. Yeah.
bang one out. Yeah, you can remember that name because Nurse Julie, I'm having trouble with my sciatic
My
nerve.
sciatic.
Or sciatic nerve. Yeah, sorry. I love it when he's like, Nurse Julie, and he pushes the kid into the water as he's running at her.
I'm on the body system.
Don't pee in the water! Don't drink the water, he peed in it!
We should do a breakdown one time. Like, I'm going to listen back to an episode and see how many minutes we spend talking about the game and how many minutes Shan is laughing at his own jokes, and then how many minutes we spend talking about pop culture references.
This is the worst one by far.
We have gotten very off track and basically nothing done. But that's okay.
Yeah,
we're chatting. We're having a good time.
This is going to be our most liked episode by far.
I'm fine with it. Listen, if this is what you guys want to do, we'll just stop talking about video games altogether and just...
do movie breakdowns.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't care. We'll just talk.
Yeah, it's a new channel, Sad Dad Movies.
We should honestly just like break down some movies sometimes because we clearly want to talk about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou at some point.
Yeah.
See if it gets any traction.
Yeah. I mean, the new Odyssey movie's coming out, so it feels like that would just land
that's in
perfectly.
2026.
There we go.
But...
We can just do them both at the same time. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so he got swarmed by a bunch of homeless dudes.
Yeah.
He does not care for homeless people apparently, because he just kicks their trash.
I was gonna say he does deal with them fairly gently. There's not a lot of like hard
That's
punches.
because they don't have a lot of muscle mass.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's mostly like jujitsu.
They're not getting
stuff, where he kind of just pushes them down and then
redirecting their momentum.
Yeah.
There it is. It's
Yeah. For those of you listening and not watching, we all just did very cool karate moves and we all looked awesome doing it. So
yeah, we know what
so Lee gets away though. But Lee gets away, Peter doesn't get a hold of him, but then he gets a call from Otto, and Otto is very excited. And says come to the lab, and so Peter goes to the lab. And I think that maybe this is the last part that we talk about tonight. I think that this we'll chat about it, but like
depends how many more heavyweight references we can fit in.
Yeah, how more heavyweight references.
If I don't get at least 3 more, we have to keep going.
Shan hasn't quite met his quota yet. So, but you go to the lab. Otto's very excited. He's talking about, people being more, why just replace a limb when you can be more than that and move beyond that? And anyone who knows anything about Spider-Man is like, oh, really? What a novel idea, Otto. I had no idea you felt that way. But it's like, it's nice to see the gradual, like, Otto's mind shifting towards what all Spider-Man fans understand will be his eventual point, like where he'll get to being Dr. Octopus. And so you go to the office and he's doing an experiment with a prosthetic, not a prosthetic, but like a robotic hand that looks much sleeker. And there's a lot of new boxes. And it's like Otto has very clearly gotten funding from somewhere. And Peter goes, look at all this new stuff. Where'd you get funding? And Otto just goes, well, I called in all these debts and, I pulled out my blah, blah, blah and all this stuff. And he just kind of like brushes it away and is like, and it made me immediately suspicious. I was like, in my brain, I was like, well, if you could have done this, why didn't you do it before? Which really makes me feel like Otto got this stuff in a not super above board way.
Well, I'm thinking like if he's escalated his ideology to be superior, right? If you're just breaking even on your prosthetics, that's one thing. If you want superhumans, there is more investment opportunities to be had in that, especially with the military. Yeah, but with the military,
maybe
you can access a lot of funding in the military with superhuman.
He does mention, that there's a few contracts. Like if you kind of explore the lab a little bit, like you can see there's a big drawing of the raft, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I picked up some contracts to help reinforce the raft." But you look and you can see like the 3D printers are all brand new, and they all have a specific little logo on them that says AIM, which anyone familiar with the comics knows that it's Advanced Idea Mechanics. That's been provided by that, and there's a bunch of like the little folders and things. Basically he got his funding from AIM. He's working with / for them. And
can you give us some insight?
So Advanced Idea Mechanics is a pretty villainous organization within the Marvel universe. So they're
like Science Hydra.
Yeah, they're very much science. They were in the MCU in Iron Man 3. They were the group that developed Extremis, and so Tony kind of finds them there.
Is it like black market science stuff, or is it military, or like it's their thing?
It's basically like, they do a bunch of like military contracts and do a bunch of
it is military. Okay,
sciencey, evil stuff in the Avengers game that Eric and I often share our frustrations over whenever
the really good Crystal Dynamics online multiplayer Avengers game that was really great and faced no controversy and was universally loved by everyone.
But
that they poured so much effort into to make it quality, right?
Yeah. Well, for the first like 4 hours, that you could tell that
it started really great. Well, and to be fair, Lundy and I played a bit of it together online, and I think we just really wanted it to be good. And so we played probably about, I don't know, 15 or 20 hours together, and that was about all I could muster of doing the same mission over and over again. Like, it's because it's just the same mission.
Yeah, like, it definitely, and this is a whole other episode that we could spend on this, but that game was the casualty of executives in suits who don't understand video games, don't know what makes a good video game, they don't know how to make a good video game. They came in to a game that was clearly halfway through development already and said, live service games are the trend now, this needs to be a live service game.
Make it Destiny. And they were like, but I don't want to.
So you can tell that halfway through development, that's what it became, because through the first half of the game, it's a single player narrative driven game that's actually pretty good, and then at that halfway point it changes and it becomes a live service game, and it is not good.
It's very abrupt. You can it just happens all of a sudden and you're like, wait a minute, it feels like you're playing a different game.
It's jarring.
Okay. All right, so
but anyways, AIM is the main villain in that one. That's what Lundy was talking about. So Doc Ock gets his funding from AIM.
All right, so back to Otto. I'm curious what you think here. So clearly he's changed his motivation to enhance humans so that he could secure the funding. Now, what do you think it is personally? Does he actually want to enhance humans, or is he already shifted his motivation internally? So is he just trying to access funds so that he can go directly after Norman Osborn? Is purely selfish, or does he actually still want to enhance other people to save them or to help them anyway? Is that already out the window for him? Has he defenestrated that idea?
I think it's probably I think he, in his own mind, he thinks he's doing both because he's getting money, but there is something about him that is later to be revealed that would explain why he wants to make the body better. Leave the constraints of the human body behind and become something higher, something more evolved. And so I think that it's driven by that selfish part of him, but he's rationalizing it by saying, well, but this can also benefit other people.
I think that I agree with Lundy 100%. I think that it's the early stages, but he hasn't, he's still trying to help other people. But we see not little hints. It's a pretty obvious hint actually. But when Otto does the test with the robotic arm, and it doesn't go quite right. And then he gets really mad and he throws down the controller and curses Osborn and says, "This is all your fault." And so you can see a pretty Otto is directing all of this anger and all of this malice towards Osborn. He already kind of was doing that, but he's starting to kind of slip into his own madness of everything is Osborn's fault and he has to pay for it. So you see the early stages of that, but I don't know that he's completely thrown it away and is starting to hatch his big evil plot yet. I think that comes a little bit later.
I mean, it feels like it definitely follows. I feel like Spider-Man has this trope of its villains starting out this exact same way of, I'm going to help the human race be better, and then it goes horribly wrong. You have Dr. Connors, Osborn does this with the Green Goblin and Tobey Maguire movies.
Back to formula.
Doc Ock here. I'm trying to think of other ones that.
All of them. Every Spider-Man villain, basically. Pretty much all of them.
But I think just with that though, I mean, I think that's why why it makes them such great villains is their origin story always starts out with good intentions that they're holding on to the end game. And like we talked about before, the means justifying the end is, I think here Otto is in that mode of like, okay, whatever I have to do to get to the end here, whatever means I have to do, whatever corners I have to cut, whatever thing I have to sacrifice to get to the end is what I need to do. But in doing so, he loses that altruistic part of helping. He finds a power that he has been wanting, but maybe not consciously understood that, to then, go on to do what he does.
I agree. I think that every time a test fails as well, he that's another argument or another more proof to himself that this is Osborn's fault. He's like, I'm sure that every time something goes wrong in the lab, he can spin it in a way to convince himself that like this is Osborn's fault. And so it's this like cycle of madness where he keeps feeding into himself. Whenever something doesn't go right, it's Osborn's fault. And so we get to see a little bit of that. And he just starts, he starts off trying to be the good guy and ends up it's all about revenge.
Yeah, this reminds me of Tony Perkis's descent into madness in Heavyweights.
Walk us through that, Shan. How does...
Yeah. Well, he starts off just trying to run a fat camp for, for some portly adolescences, where they are just like some misguided youth that have indulged themselves a little too much. And so he's thinking strictly in this pragmatic utilitarian mindset of just like, I just need to do whatever I need to do to like, fix their habits. What?
First off, he starts out to want to sell videos, infomercials, to then have people come to the camp and make money. Not a lot of altruism in that.
No. He wants to use the camp to correct their, but that is just like, but I also have to get an ROI on my investment, and it has to be a profitable. That is just like a business part of thing that he has to do. He has to make it profitable. If he's just going there and the thing isn't profitable, then what's the point of being there, right? So it has to be a business thing. So it is just part of it, right? It seems slimy, but that is just the cost of doing business. So he starts there, and he's like, and he's a little bit ruthless, but he starts being pushed back against by these kids that are bending the rules that he has set, these guidelines that are strict, and he starts going mad, right? Because they're breaking these rules. And you see by the end, he starts really losing it. He's like, what do I have to do? I have to keep pushing because I'm not going to hit the deadline of them losing these weight goals. And by the end, he snaps and he takes them up the mountain, and he tells them of the parable of the kid Icarus, who continuously rolled the ball up the hill until the ball melted in the heat of the sun. And the children were all like Icarus, right? And
is that the
and then by the top of the mountain, he's really lost his mind. He's spinning in his own madness until like they have to lure him into a pit because he's consumed by this madness. And then they put him in like this makeshift prison. The password was Yankee Doodles. And they have to reclaim the camp. But this is his descent into madness, right? Because he thinks he's right, and he has to keep rationalizing these escalations, just like Otto Octavius.
Yeah, I want to thank Shan for that really thoughtful deconstruction of a complex character.
Didn't feel as forced at all.
But with that, we've hit Shan's quota for heavyweight things now.
Yeah, well, can't top that.
That's it. So I mean that is pretty much it. So Peter helps Otto fix the arm, and then they do a successful test with it, and Otto is very excited about that. This is also where Otto tells Peter that that Otto and Norman used to be lab partners, and they were friends, and they were college roommates even, and that they co-founded Oscorp together. and that Osborn started a genetic, let me see what it says. He started a genetics project that Otto considered unethical, and that's why he decided to leave. So he took a buyout. And then Osborn went on and did lots of shady stuff without him.
Yeah.
So we get that kind
Oscorp,
of background of their relationship.
Oscorp was named after both of them, the O's. And I thought that was kind of reaching. It was kind of dumb.
Well, yeah.
Oscorp.
That's what Norman Osborn told him, so he would feel better about himself. He's like, oh, no,
It's
I
named
named
after
it after you
Osborn.
too.
Named after both of us. Yeah.
No, that's
But it's like Osborn, Oscorp. Yeah, it's just named after Norman. Like,
No, yeah. Okay, so I was curious, what do you think these characters, how do they foil each other? What is at the core of what drives both of them, and how do they bring out the best or worst of each other?
Otto and Norman?
Yeah.
Or okay.
They're great foils to each other, but in what way?
I think that they show two sides of the developmental science coin. Like, Osborn wants to develop and further science, but he's not so concerned about ethics. He's concerned about profits and results. He wants scientific results and financial results, and like consequences be damned kind of a thing. And then Otto is very interested in, scientific discovery and all of that, but he also wants it to do something good. So it's like they have similar desires, but Otto's ethics, at least at first, because towards the end those kind of go out the window, but at least at first Otto's ethics kind of tie him to wanting to having a desire for his research and his work to have a greater benefit, and Norman just wants his work to be successful.
I think that each of them, you can see where their motivation comes from. For Norman, it's purely self-focused. It's what makes me money. We find out a little bit later what some of his genetic experimentation is for, and it's something that is very self-serving. It's something that's important to him, and that's why he's willing to do things that are unethical, because it's a very deeply personal thing for him. And Otto is very externally focused. He's focused on doing things for other people are his motivation, and that starts out good, but it becomes that all other people, it just gets swallowed up in Norman Osborn. He's only doing this because of Norman Osborn. So in a way, like their source of inspiration is different in that one is internally focused, one's externally focused, but where they're the same is that Norman Osborn is the inspiration for both of them to do what they do, because by the end Otto is focused. He's doing all that he does specifically because of Norman Osborn, and that's the only external factor that matters at that point.
Yeah. Norman Osborn has proven that even though takes unethical shortcuts and he's more intrinsically motivated and selfish, he has proven an ROI. He has created a corporation that has proven to be beneficial to society, and he's a mayor that has produced all of these external results. So it's like you can say he's a shady, gross person and ethically dubious, but he is providing a sort of return of goods to society with his behavior. And Otto Octavius is kind of draining resources to try to get to his net positive, and hasn't yet proven that. Not to say he won't get there, but he's more altruistic, and he's a better human being. But we're also seeing that he can be corrupted by Norman Osborn, and so we're seeing how fragile he is in this state because he's invested so much in one thing, and what happens when that frangible thing is broken and shattered in front of him. How altruistic is he really? And and how small is his ego. I don't know. It's interesting because like clearly it's easy to say Otto is the better person, but like we're seeing his world crumble and how easily he turns on what made him a good person.
Yeah, I think that they're interesting foils for each other. Very different results, but with similar core desires.
Like, who has generally had a better net positive for society, although arguably who has had a better, who has had a, you know, a net negative? I don't know. I mean,
I would say I think
Osborn's had a better net positive.
I think Osborn has probably had a moderate, like net positive and net negative. Yeah. And I don't know which one would be more. And Otto has kind of just sort of kept to himself, so he's been not really either. He's inspirational. Like he's inspirational to Peter in particularly, but he's also slight draining on some government resources. But you know, so everything he does is on a smaller scale. Everything that Norman does is on a bigger scale. So his good things are big good, and his bad things are big bad. Like just because his sphere of influence is so much larger.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, I think. Is that we have to end it here?
Yeah, I think that
somebody think of another heavyweights I've referenced.
No, no, I think we got it. Yeah. So next time we're gonna do my favorite, some favorite MJ stuff. Yay, hooray! We're gonna talk about some more MJ things and see what the old Peter Parker gets up to next.
We already asked you to like, comment, subscribe. Do it again. Because we know you didn't do it. Nobody ever does it.
If you did, unsubscribe and then subscribe again. Yeah.
Oh,
and leave another comment. Yeah.
Click the bell for those nominally instant notifications, as Richard Ledbetter would say on Digital Foundry. What an amazing human being that guy is. All right, so please check in next week for our next episode. At this rate, if we keep packing these full of references, we can stretch this out to 8 or 9 episodes. I think we can do it.
Yeah, I make all the thumbnails for the YouTube videos, and I had planned out 5, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make like 17 more just in case.
All right, see you, everyone.
Bye.
Outro. Bleepity-doof, bleepity, bloopity, blow.